Megyn Kelly goes off on Jen Psaki, that media hack on MSDNC, for covering up the story about Kamala Harris's own husband being a known womanizer. Thank you so much for watching Bring the Asteroid. Make sure you like today's video, subscribe to this channel, and subscribe to my personal YouTube channel, linked in the description, and we will get into it.
They get Tim Walz, and they want us to believe he's this down-home, folksy guy. They get her husband, Doug Emhoff, and they want us to believe that this man who cheated on his first wife and impregnated the nanny, they either aborted the child or he abandoned the child. Neither one is good. But when he sits down with the Jen Psakis of the world on MSNBC, if you're going to go there, then go there into what kind of a man and husband he is. You don't have to ask him what kind of a husband he is. You can ask him something else if you want. But if you're going to talk about what kind of a husband he is, you're going to have to go there. Instead, this is what we got when he sat down with her over the weekend in Stop 15.
An interesting part of how people have talked about your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
It's funny, I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this. And to me, it's the right thing to do, support women. When we lift up women, we support women, whether it's pay equity, child care, family leave, and all these issues that, this post-Dobbs hellscape, women should not be less than.
There's a pop culture phrase, wife guy, which you've kind of been known as. Are you familiar with this?
I've heard about it.
As called a wife guy, a proud wife guy? How do you feel about that?
Well, if I do something annoying to Kamala and she gets upset, I'll just show her that article.
A Victor.
Wow.
A wife
that was
guy.
A former press secretary. I know it. I mean, they put Donald Trump, basically, they're trying to put him in jail, Alvin Bragg, because it all started with Stormy Daniels, and they use Stormy Daniels everywhere. But if that was true, and you have a one-time tryst with a porno star, is pretty bad. But you're going to criminalize that and use that to embarrass him and criminalize. And this guy brings in a woman into his own home, and he's hired her. And it's a power imbalance, as the left always warns us about.
Yes.
And then they're so strong about abortion. They're telling everybody to get abortion, but they don't want to tell us whether she was forced to have an abortion or not. They should be bragging about it, according to their own doctrine.
You're a wife guy. If by that you mean you like to bang the nanny when the wife's not looking, sure, you're a wife guy. I like to support women. How did you support her? By aborting the child that you had outside of wedlock with the nanny? Is that supportive? Was the baby a girl? Because that's not so supportive to that little girl.
It blew up at Arnold Schwarzenegger. As soon as he came out of office, it was kind of like in California, his wife knew about it but kept it quiet. As soon as they announced it, everything blew up for him. I mean, everybody thought he was a cad. He was a scoundrel. This woman was in his own house. He used the own bed. He lied about it. He had an illegitimate child he never took. But then he kind of manned up to it. You know what he said? Yes, I did this, and I'm supporting them. And he kind of recovered a little bit. But he hasn't told us anything. And they don't want to find out anything. But
Victor, they think of the journalistic dereliction. You have Doug Emhoff. Maybe you're going to ask him, what's her vision for X? What's her vision for Y? Okay, maybe you're just going to use him as like a policy surrogate. But if you decide to go to the what kind of husband Doug Emhoff is place, and then you're that fawning, you've humiliated yourself. I can't believe someone didn't say, Jen, let's not go there.
I know, right? Like, you'd think they would have a little bit, just like a smidget of self-awareness. But of course, those hacks don't. What more could you expect from them?
Banged the nanny and got her pregnant on the first wife. There may or may not have been an abortion or an abandoned child. One of those two things did happen, even according to him. Let's maybe not make him into the second coming. Okay, but this is par for the course for Jen Psaki. We put together just a few examples of her very tough, hard-hitting questions. Watch.
You've also been front and center in talking about abortion rights. Why do you think that's so important? Do you think he's scared of debating her? The other thing I have been thinking about a lot is how it must be for you when you see people attacking your wife. What do you guys do when you have downtime? Now, she's a great cook, loves to cook.
Is.
You've said she's tried to teach you to cook. What can you cook now that she taught you? And you also passed on advice to Gwen Wallace. What did you pass along to her?
No one cares. Okay, let me round back to what was in the first question. You've redefined masculinity. This is such an insult to American men that they would tee this guy up and say, this is the new definition of masculinity. I am insulted, Victor, to suggest that a man who behaved like that, right, who behaved like that, and also that it's, what is it? Is there something wrong with a man being in a more traditional man role that's not only supportive of the wife? Most men can be alphas and supportive of their wives.
But, I mean, there is another element of I was embedded twice in Iraq. And when I was on a Black Hawk once, and I was sitting next to a guy, and we were flying at night. And he was 18 years old from the Middle West. And he had a 50 caliber machine gun, and there was no cover or anything. And I asked him when we landed, I said, "You do this every day?" He said, "I do it every day." I said, "You get shot at all the time?" I said, "You have to avoid things?" "Yeah, people build cell phone towers. They don't tell us. It's dangerous at night." That's an element of masculinity. And I just put a roof on my home, and I looked up, and there's a guy named Jose, and he had 45 pounds of shingles on his back, and he was tiptoeing across an old Victorian farmhouse 35 feet above the ground like he was a ballet dancer with all this weight when it was about 100. That's masculinity. And yet we're supposed to tell us that everything that we've associated with courage and physicality and muscularity and danger, that's out the window, because this is a new type of if it's a new type of masculinity, then he would say, "Look, I screwed up. I had an affair with my nanny, and it was bad, and I regret it. And I took the following measures to rectify it. And you can ask me anything you want, and that's masculinity." And he didn't do that. And
Exactly. And I just love how they're talking about what like an utter freaking insult it is to say that this guy's the peak masculinity. He's just amazing. It's just an insult to men, and actually masculine men. Like, why doesn't he admit his issues? But of course, these Dems and people in politics, quite frankly, never want to admit that they've ever done anything wrong in their entire lives. And that's why people hate politicians, because they think and know for a fact that they're a bunch of lying snake hacks. If you're still watching this video, comment MAGA to help boost it in the algorithm. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Bring the asteroid. I will see you guys next time.